There's the record button and cue up the fucking intro.
See, we working on his brow chakra. We're just in back at the crown chakra.
You have any moves? I'd like to see you incorporate them.
All right, welcome to Waxing the Porpoise, joined by your host Jim G. Baby, and as usual, the usual suspect Steve. Point of order: this is this will be a mini abbreviated episode because a couple nights ago we recorded an hour and a half on Highlander, which was a first time watch for Steve, and I completely shat the bed and forgot to hit the all important record button, which didn't dawn on me until I hit the outro music, concluding the episode. So, not wanting to have to wait and break up our streak of releasing every week, I figured I had the bright idea of let's cover a short story. One in particular is pretty new to me. I think I came across this a few months ago. It's The Jaunt by Stephen King. So that's what we'll be covering this week in lieu of Highlander. I don't know if we'll ever come back to it. We'll see. But yeah, so this episode we're talking about The Jaunt, and it'll be a more bite-sized episode. So with that, how are you doing in the past 48 hours, Steve?
Doing good, buddy. Don't be too hard on yourself. It happens. It was very funny when I got the notification from you that the recording was lost forever.
We are lost.
It was still a good time. Goofy ass movie, and I wouldn't mind circling back around and doing it sometime in the future.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, if anything, we had a good conversation about it, and I think that we just talked about the thing I'm most miffed about is that we don't get to hear or share our riffing on David Blaine, which we'll have to come back to again because that's a treasure trove of fun there. So okay, well, without further ado, let's get into The Jaunt. So, Steve just told me he is familiar with The Jaunt anyway. I was hoping this was kind of like a more obscure one that you hadn't checked out before, but he had. So this is both a revisit for both of us. How long ago?
So how did this get on your radar?
So I am part of the Straight Chilling. They're their own podcast. They have their own community of listeners, children, as it were. Emphasis on the chill.
Do they spell it with two L's?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's an unofficial.
Is there a hyphen?
There can be.
Hell yeah. Good for them.
That's the unofficial moniker. Anyway, that we have there's like a message board. I know it's all the rage. Like people have these different fandoms have like Discord servers and
sure. Yeah.
We have a Slack channel that we all kind of just bounce shit out. It's like a separate, like a closed shell social media program, as it were.
Oh, okay.
Anywho,
closed shell. All right.
Yeah, someone on there, Miles, mentioned The Jaunt in like the book channel, and it's horror centric, So this one came up, and he's like, It's probably the least Stephen King, like in terms of like the horror content, but he said it's like the most horrifying, one of the most horrifying stories I've ever read, which we'll get into the reasons why. But I was like, oh, what's that? I've never heard of it. And I have The Skeleton Crew, Collecting Dust, the anthology or collection of short stories by Stephen King. So I checked it out, and sure as shit, it is pretty goddamn terrifying. Like some of the implications, and it's so yeah, that's how I came across it. I know you're a pretty big reader. I don't know if you're a big Stephen King fan, but how long ago did you get introduced to The Jaunt?
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, I've always kind of been a Stephen King fan. His stuff can be sort of hit or miss. He's got a few books that are like in my all-time favorite, just really heavy hitter, great books. He also has a fair share of books that are just dog shit. Some of them are really good, but you can tell he had a hard time landing the plane, if you will. There's nothing worse than committing to a really long book that you're really into, and then at the end it's just fucking stupid. So depending on how into this you want to get, we could talk about some of those. But
yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I had that Skeleton Crew book for years, never read it, and then just like a year ago, I finally cracked it open, and it's probably my least favorite Stephen King book out of all of them. It took me so long to get through it. I ended up just putting it like in the bathroom and would just like, chunk it off in little pieces. The first story in that book is The Mist, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts strong, but then some of the stories in that book are just so hard to get through and painfully bad, in my opinion. I'm not an author or a literary critic by any means, but I mean, some of those stories go back to the 60s when he was still a pretty fresh writer, and I think he would be the one to tell you, actually, I think he literally said in an interview one time that it's his least favorite book that he wrote. That's my cat. Because he's so green, and some of the stories are just so idiotic and hard to get through. But that being said, the Jaunt is definitely one of the better ones in that book. So if I were you, I would go ahead and let it keep collecting dust.
Yeah.
You could read The Mist. That's a good one. I've never seen that movie, but I heard that they changed the ending in the movie versus the book. And apparently the movie ending is like kind of dark, like not a crowd pleaser.
Oh yeah, it's super fucked up.
I honestly don't even remember how the story in the book ends. So maybe one day I'll watch the movie and compare it to the short story. But
that could be that could be like a good maybe during Halloween season or like a late summer kind of thing to check out The Mist, because it's kind of an obscure movie, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It's one of my more favorite King adaptations into film. And that ending, is pretty hardcore. I won't spoil anything here in the off chance we cover it. But I haven't read The Mist either. I've heard that it strays from the source material in terms of the ending. But looking through it, I only picked out the Jaunt, but there are a couple I have doggy-eared for later. One of which is
doggy-eared.
The short story The Raft. That's in there, and I guess because I'm familiar with that from Creepshow 2. That's like an anthology. That's a segment that's on film in Creepshow 2, and that segment creeped the shit out of me when I was a kid. I saw it was like 4th grade, but I've heard that just like how into detail he goes in The Raft on the scene where one of the dudes gets pulled underneath, like into the raft or the little flotilla thing that they're on, is like super graphic, and I was like, that's crazy, because the film version of it is super graphic and always gave me nightmares. So I just watched too. I was trying to brush up for this. I saw an interview with Stephen King, and he actually said they put him on the spot, like, what's the top 5 anything that you've produced is your favorite? So short story, screenplay, novel, and he actually said number 1 was Survivor Type, which is, I notice, a short story in Skeleton Crew. Do you remember that one off the top of your head?
Do you have a brief little gist? Let's see. I have the Survivor Type. God, my cat will not shut up.
Diary of a disgraced surgeon attempting to smuggle a large amount of heroin aboard a cruise ship. He's interrupted. There's an explosion. He finds himself marooned on a tiny island in the Pacific.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember this one.
He ends up eating himself alive to like stay alive, and
it's not good.
Okay.
I thought it was just kind of whatever, but yeah, I mean, he's like starving, and he's like, well, maybe I can just cut off my leg at the knee, and then he cuts it off and eats it, and then time goes by, and he's like, well, guess I can go up to the thigh, and it's like, okay, and then it just kind of ends. Like, I don't even remember. I think he fucking dies or something, but
All right. Well, not to belabor Skeleton Crew. I mean, it sounds like that's pretty. It was early on for him, and it was. There's not a ton of notable. There's 22 short stories in it, which that's a shit ton. But yeah, The Mist, the film, at least I can speak to that, is really good. I can say too, if you're a Thomas Jane fan, he plays the main protagonist in The Mist, then that's a point in its
who's
favor
that
too.
dude?
Thomas Jane. You've seen 61, haven't you? With Barry Pepper, who played Jackson and the sniper in Saving Private Ryan. He played Lou Gehrig.
Yeah, it's been a
Thomas
long time.
Thomas Jane played Mickey Mantle. What else has he been in? He's been in Stander. Stander's hella good. It's about a South African, like modern day, or like a Robin Hood from the 70s. He would steal from banks in South Africa and redistribute the wealth. What else is he in? He was in The Punisher, the movie from like '04. I'm kind of blanking. He's been in a lot more than that, but if you saw his face, you'd be like, oh, it's that guy.
Has he been in Twister by chance?
No.
Okay.
He's kind of, I guess I could say, though, if I'm trying to reach, maybe he's cut from like the same kind of cloth as like a Bill Paxton, so I feel like you would like him as an actor.
That is big talk.
Even just for like him as Mickey Mantle in 61, I thought was like spot on, like he was perfect in it. But anyway, so let's get into the Jaunt here. So yeah, we're both familiar with this. It's been a little bit longer for Steve. It's a little bit more fresh for me. So I guess we'll just do a quick Cliff's Notes for those that haven't read it. If you haven't read it, spoiler alert, inbound. Stop yourself, read it. It's only like 15 pages, and there's multiple there's links on YouTube where it's in spoken or audiobook form. You can just bang it out in I think it's like 40-minute listen. Probably a little bit quicker if you read it yourself. So The Jaunt is a horror, a little bit of background. It's a horror story, obviously, by Stephen King. It was actually first published in the Twilight Zone magazine, which I didn't even know existed, so that's cool, in 1981. And then it was later collected as a novella, as it were, in his 1985 anthology collection, Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, that book is basically the fucking hot dog of Stephen King books. They take all the lips and noses and shitty parts of a pig and just throw them all in one thing. Like, oh, here's a book.
That's a good analogy.
Because he has a couple other ones that they're not necessarily short stories. Like Different Seasons, I think, is 4 novellas. Like that's where Shawshank Redemption is, and I think Stand By Me is in that one, and Apt Pupil, like banger, good stories. And then there's another one that's called Full Dark, No Stars. I think that one's like 4 or 5 stories, and they're pretty dark. So I would highly recommend both of those. But this one just, without belaboring.
What about 4 Past Midnight? That's similar. It's like it's a collection, but they're much chunkier. I think it's 4 also.
Okay, I have not read that one, so I cannot speak to that.
Yeah, I think so. It was his second that type. So he did Different Seasons first, and then he followed that up with this collection. And I think it's probably most well known for like Secret Window, Secret Garden, and then The Langoliers. The other 2 I'm not familiar with, The Sundog and The Library Policeman, but The Langoliers I think is infamous for its like shitty USA Network straight to cable adaptation, which is super dog shit.
Oh man, I have a feeling this is going to be a recurring theme when something comes up, and we'll remember that it was talked about during the Lost episode. Because I don't know, talking about USA TV shows, we lost a lot of hot wings talk in that last episode.
Yeah, I think the USA Network springboarded into some stuff. What was it? fuck it, I can't remember, but
I cannot remember how it came up,
the
but
USA Network branched us. It took us on a new path, away
yeah.
from pretty far away from Highlander, but so anywho,
Yeah.
so that's the kind of the background of the story, like its creation. But then like specific to the story, so the setting, time and setting, it takes place in the 24th century. Um, so it's very much a sci-fi story with horrific elements within. So it's kind of it breaks the King formula there a little bit. So in this time period, technology for teleportation, which they refer to as jaunting, the jaunt through the zone, isn't that what it is? Like that temporal, like the space in between, that allows people to just jump like these massive. I don't know how far. It says like within the solar system, but like instantaneously, like nanoseconds, they can teleport. Um, and uh, so it follows. It's kind of like it follows a family that it's just like some bloke, kind of like blue collar dude who gets selected to go work on like a water field or like a Texaco something in Mars, and they live in like Schenectady. Um, so it's him, his wife, and his two kids that are about to jaunt, and then it kind of does like a flashback. He's like telling his kids like they're asking like where did it come from, like asking about how jaunting was invented and crap, and so then he kind of relays the story. And when you're reading the background of it, there's parts of it that he omits from telling his kids because they're so horrific. He's trying to keep, hey, everything's going to be cool, you know. He wants to spare them all those gory details, but some of those are like the most horrific parts, you know, besides the very end. But yeah, so it was invented in 1985 by a guy named Victor Carroon, who kind of stumbled across it by accident. Um, you want to take it from there, like how that kind of
Sure.
that
Yeah.
part forms?
And not to red pen you, but I think it was 1987 because I just reread it
Oh, okay,
to to refamiliarize myself. So
gotcha.
maybe I read a different date or whatever. But yeah, so the general premise is in the far distant future of 1987, the energy crisis has reached, a fever pitch. So this teleportation device, it makes oil basically obsolete because you don't need gas to transport goods from place to place. You can just throw it through the portal. And so in the future, oil isn't as valuable of a commodity. It's more about water. So they're going to different planets to bring water back. And so the setting of the book, like you said, is it's this family of four, and they're basically in the waiting room. It's like an airport, basically, getting ready to do this jaunt. And so, the annoying, snot-nosed little shit kids are asking questions about the history of the jaunt as the employees are basically going around gassing everybody. So, yeah, he's trying to tell them the history because he's made this trip, I think it says 20 or 25 times, but this is the first time for the wife and kids.
Right.
So he's trying to tell them the story, which it sounds like they get it taught to them in school, but they're, asking questions about it and stuff. So, yeah, he's trying to leave out any anxiety-inducing details because they're about to get the gas and go under and go through this portal. And yeah, so that's basically the setting for what we are about to learn.
So, and then that's the important key here is the getting sedated to make this trip, because the guy who invented it, Victor Carroon, he stumbled on it. He was testing stuff, and he stumbles on it by accidentally like teleporting two of his fingers like across the room, and then he like mimics it with a pencil, and he's onto something, and then so he moves up, progressively to using mice, and they all keep like dying, or like as soon as he gets them out, they have like a heart attack, and they're all fucked up. And then he finally, through trial and error, sedates one of the mice, sends it through, comes out, it comes to, and it's fine. So that's how they, right? That's how they figure out, okay, you got to be sedated, then you can do it, then you're cool.
Yeah, everything he puts through comes out completely exactly the same. He puts through a watch, and that comes through, and it's still working. It's totally fine. So he figures that physically everything is the same, but there's like a psychological or mental thing that happens between the two portals, that if he sedates the animal, that it won't have this like catatonic,
Right.
effect when it comes through on the other side, because he puts a mouse in ass first, and that seems to be okay when he pulls it back out. But then when he puts it through head first, that's when they spaz the fuck out on the other side and keel over. And so that's kind of what led him to attempting to sedate.
So, and then it kind of goes off on like some of the side stories, the history of the Jaunt. That the dad, his name's Mark Oates, that he spares his children, which is one of the most interesting facets, like as the reader. So like goes on to explain, like, obviously, now, like, you think of how the mob dealt with people and putting them in barrels and cement shoes and stuff, and like that becomes like a nice and tidy outlet to dispose of anyone you want to without a trace. And then what was it? Was it like a guy and his wife, and they're like having marital problems or something? And he fucking, to like
Yeah.
avoid all that struggle and rigmarole and red tape, he just fucking boots her while
Well,
still conscious.
so basically, when you put something through the portal, there's a way to program where it ends up.
Oh, right, right,
Right.
right,
So
right.
if you imagine a switchboard of like, I want this to go to Tokyo or London or San Francisco or whatever, he just turned them all off and puts her through the portal. So she's just floating somewhere forever.
Dude.
Savage.
Yeah, that's fucking insane. That's like one of those things when you think about, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, the older I get, the more jaded I get. So, like, I still would reserve that for probably certain people, but that's a very small list of who I would do that to.
Well,
Maybe the
I
one
think
and only thing I can think of is that Sword and Scale episode that you introduced me to, the Daisy's Destruction or whatever, Daisy's Revenge. It's like people like that, sure, but
is that the one
dude,
with the red room and the like? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
fuck that,
That one
fuck
was
all
pretty
that
bad.
noise. But yeah, just like you could sit there and think about like that for a while and have it really twist your noodle, like. And that kind of ties back to the Lost episode when we were talking about John Hamm, and he's in an episode of White Christmas of Black Mirror. There's something
Yeah.
similar to that where it's like they can upload your consciousness to this thing called I think it's called an egg, and it's like a prisoner, and like before these cops leave, like they're just like, oh, just leave him in the egg over the weekend, it's like a holiday, and they'll come back and continue to interrogate him or whatever. And this fucking greaseball cop goes and he twists the dial, so it's like when they come back after their 3-day holiday to then continue interrogating the prisoner, his time, it's been like, fuck, it was like 2,274 days per second or something like that they crank this knob up. So like when they come
Hmm.
back, he's probably the same, like sunken eyeballs and just like a blathering idiot, like from spending virtually an eternity in this thing, and they come back and it's 3 days later. It reminded me of that vignette in Black
Yeah.
Mirror. So if you like this, I
Or
think you would like that episode
like
too.
or the machine in Princess Bride. I just sucked 1 year of your life away.
Oh yeah. Dude, I haven't seen that movie
But
in a
yeah,
long time. Yeah, the more you
so
think about that, the more mad you'll go, like thinking about like fuck, just an eternity through this, like I don't know if it's a wormhole or like if you close the other side, you're just like spinning in a fucking hyper vacuum for eternity.
Yeah.
Ew.
Well, there was the cool part of the story when they talk about when they graduated from testing it on animals to humans, they were using like prisoners.
Yeah.
And so there's one prisoner that he was in jail for like a quadruple murder or something, and all the prisoners they tested, they sedated them and they went through fine. This prisoner, they're like, we're gonna go ahead and send you through not sedated, if you agree, and if you make it through, we'll give you a pardon and you can just walk away. But if you don't, sorry. And he agrees to it, and yeah, he comes through the other side a split second later, but his hair is all gone white and he just looks like shit. And what does he say about what's inside there? I can't remember what his exact quote was. Like, it's eternity in there or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
He needs some milk.
He needs milk. Yeah, that reminds me of have you ever seen 2001: A Space Odyssey
I have not.
by Stanley Kubrick? Yeah, towards the end there's a super like psychedelic part where this guy, it's pretty nebulous, but it's like seemingly that he travels at like light speed, and it's like this super psychedelic, like it shows him going through like 1970s visualization of what it might be like to go through a wormhole. And I just imagined like that, like for like a billion years, like at some point I feel like you would transcend like consciousness and you would become like a mini god, and then like implode in on yourself like 1,000 times and just come like you would just like crumble to dust. Like I can't even imagine like if that were a real thing. It's too out there to try and wrap your head around. But yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah. So do you want to explain what happens with the sun?
Yeah. So yeah, then to wrap all this up, so basically, like the dad's kind of smooth things over, and he's explained like, to try and keep everyone as on the level as possible and not freak anyone out. Like, yeah, this is just normal. We're just going to be, teleported a billion miles away in a matter of seconds, but it's cool. But he also goes, I think this is where his error was. I think he oversells the fact of like the sedation and like that you have to make sure you breathe in the gas, and you have to you have to let it happen and then go under and then take the trip. And then so that, to me, it's like the old adage of like, you tell someone not to do something, it's like, especially a kid, it's like that's the exact fucking thing they want to do. Maybe it's not that clear cut, but at any rate, his son, his youngest son, who's probably a little troublemaker at that age, he purposely holds his breath when they're giving him the gas to sedate them, and sure as shit, they all go one by one. They get spit out on the other side in Mars, I think it is, and then the son holds his breath, so he goes through the jaunt conscious, and he comes out on the other side, and he's all gaunt looking and like eyes sunken in, and he's like, probably spazzing out and maniacally giggling to himself. And what's he say? He says,
it's longer than you think.
It's longer than you think, Dad, longer than you think, before clawing out his own bloodshot eyes as he is wheeled away ostensibly into some kind of futuristic loony bin. So yeah, that's the end of it. But yeah, I would agree. I mean, like, this isn't like a super gory or like a jump scary kind of like kooky Stephen King thing. More of like, it's definitely a sci-fi tale, but like some of those details and like thinking about like the implication are pretty fucking terrifying. Like if you happen to if someone pushed you through, or if you stumbled through it, or like what if the sedation didn't take on you and it's like, all right, bye. Like,
yeah.
boom. Like, yeah. Crazy. Scary stuff. So I guess a little bit of trivia on this too. So are you familiar with the new It remake?
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen them? I like the first
Mm-mm.
one pretty good. It Part 2 is a garbage fire. It sucks really bad. I've actually read it or listened to it on audiobook. If you're going to be a purist about it, but I
Yeah.
really obviously it's one of those situations, the book's better than the movie, blah blah blah. It is far superior to any of the later adaptations, even if like I do like Tim Curry as Pennywise in the OG made for TV shit, but even that it doesn't come close to the book. They leave a lot of stuff out, and they do with the remakes as well. But yeah, the whole like the fucking Chud and like the tortoise and like the ritual of Chud and all that kind of stuff. They totally fucking butcher in It Part 2. But I will say the first one that was made in like 2017, I think, that
Mhm.
one's good. I like it a lot. I think it did a good job. But at any rate, in 2015, they announced that the guy who did these new It remakes, Andy Muschietti, was going to adapt the Jaunt into a film. But then he took It instead when that came across his plate. So then he kind of shelved it. But then this is new news. I don't know if it's died from here, but as of June 2021, it was set to be made. The Jaunt is set to be made into a television series by one of the Fear the Walking Dead co-creators, who has also worked on Ozark, House of Cards. There's another Kevin Spacey connective tissue. Um, we should have like 6 degrees of Kevin Spacey and Steve on here. And then he also worked on one of your favorite adaptations of Stephen King, HBO's The Outsider.
Oh god. I bet the show was better than the book.
I liked the show a lot. I remember you saying you were with it up until kind of like towards the end, and you could start seeing where it was going with it. But
Yeah. I mean, so it's been a while since I read it, but as it started to get into the last third or quarter, I remember thinking like, "Oh God, please don't let this be going where I think it's going." And then it kind of dekes you a little bit and goes a different way, and it's like, "Oh, okay, thank God." And then they just shift right back into the original thing, like, "Oh fuck, they are going exactly where I was hoping they weren't."
yeah. Yeah, I can't
But
speak from not reading the book, but I did like the show, although I left a little flat at the ending of it. But it's
yeah,
kind of one of those things like I enjoyed the journey so much that it kind of outweighed the end falling a little flat or not going the direction I would have liked it to. But one person I really liked, and I'm curious about your opinion on, is I liked the show adaptation of Holly Gibney's character a lot. Is she dope in the book too?
yeah. So actually,
And she's in other
she
shit too.
is. Yeah. So uh, if you want to talk about a Stephen King book or series that doesn't really delve into the same level of supernatural, stuff that a lot of his other ones are, it's the Mr.
Mercedes.
Mercedes
Yeah.
trilogy. Super, super good. I love that one a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's in that one.
I got started with the show and I was with it for like the first season, and I think they made 3 seasons of it, but then I kind of just left it there. And I've heard the book of Mr. Mercedes is really good, so I want to come back to and maybe just start with the book next time. Um, but the intro,
All three of them are awesome.
the
They're really
intro
good.
of that show, like the person running the person over and like the picket line or the job fair line, is pretty fucking horrific the way they shot it.
Yeah. And it does kind of get into the supernatural stuff a little bit, but I mean, really, it's just like a detective novel for the most part, and it's really good. All three books in that series are, I would highly recommend them.
I really like the guy that they got in the show, Mr. Mercedes, to play the main detective. I can't remember what his name is, but they got the dude from Braveheart, The big fucking Irish or the big Scottish dude with the red hair that plays Mel Gibson's like homie.
God, I haven't seen that in so long.
His
I can't
name
picture it.
his name is Brennan Gleeson. He's an Irish actor, older gentleman. He's a good actor. I liked him as the lead detective. But anyway, yeah, back to The Outsider. I really liked Holly Gibney in the show is fucking badass. Like I would pay to watch like a movie or a series that just followed her and her kookiness solving shit.
Yeah.
I really liked her a lot. But yeah, I guess so. I couldn't find any other news about the
How
Jaunt.
are they going to turn that into a TV series?
I don't know.
They're gonna have
It
they're gonna
probably
have
would
to
be
just
butchered.
I mean, it would all have to be like a brand new story.
Or they'd go hard into like the political side of like, like a modern day parallel between our struggle with oil and shit now, and then just transpose to like water, and then have this teleportation shit in the background. But yeah, I don't think this kind of thing would be served by being stretched out into a fucking show or a movie even. I think it's just fine the way it is. Just leave it.
Yeah. Yeah,
'Cause
no
there'd
wonder
have to
that
be
guy
something
picked
else.
it. I mean, no wonder that guy picked it over this. Like, there's so much more
Oh yeah.
material that you can sort of interpret or alter in this. It's just like, yeah, you're going to need to just think of everything, and we'll
Yeah.
give you like a bare bones sort of rubric on which to go.
Yeah. And if you got it versus that, I mean, that's like golden ticket to make the remake with like a big studio budget and stuff on it, which I did like the first one, so I would recommend checking that out, but just leave it there. Don't bother with part 2 because it's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Man, we lost a lot of good Top Gun talk too.
Yeah, we did. I actually watched since then. I found a pretty good cam online and I watched it, and I don't
And
know,
you loved
man.
it. Oh my God.
I think I'm trying to give it a little bit of credit because I know for a fact that that's a theater movie, like to get the
Yeah.
full experience, you know. So, but
You didn't watch like a Bosnian ripoff?
no, it was actually. I mean, cams these days are pretty fucking good, all things considered. But I don't know, it just kind of fell flat for me a little bit. Like
You're
I
an
think
asshole.
yeah, I think I overhyped it. I did like the scenes with Val Kilmer. I did like their thing that they had, however brief he was in there. I did like that. I thought that was a respectful way of bringing him back without like nostalgia gouging you.
Yeah. I mean, even just the flying scenes are
Those were
awesome.
pretty fucking badass. Like, I will say
Yeah.
too, without spoiling it, I guess, like one of the last maneuvers involving chaff
Yeah.
was fucking badass. That part was
Yeah.
super dope.
And yeah, it gets a little Hollywood at the very end, but I mean, I don't know what anybody would be expecting. I was expecting a higher level of corniness just after watching the first one, but
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could have been way worse. I just wish there would have been a little bit more stakes involved. Like, I wish there would have been more of like a gut punch towards the end there with something.
I
Without,
guess life and death isn't high enough stakes for you, huh?
well, I guess I'll just come on and say I wish somebody would have died, like on
Wow.
the good guys' side to make it more impactful. Maybe that's just a product of like Game of Thrones and like, you know, that shock that you get from like a main character or someone that you really pulling for gets fucking wiped out. But yeah,
I was kind of expecting the same thing.
I'll say it's okay.
And I was looking at all of them like in the Water Boy, you know, who's it gonna be?
Yeah, there's my bitch. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's my bitch.
Yeah. I didn't really like the Hangman character. Although that's a dope call sign.
Yeah, he made himself very douchey and hateable.
Yeah, I did not like him.
And And I thought for sure, like, oh, this guy's gonna like redeem himself and do something super awesome, and he may or may not have, but I felt like because they puffed up how much of a dickhead he is for so long, felt like they needed to do more to have him be like redeemed. But
Yeah.
whatever. I'm gonna go see it again with the missus.
What do you think she's going to think of it?
She better like it. Or else she's walking home.
Chase, don't do that.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for this quick hitter on the Jaunt. I highly recommend it. It's a really short read or short listen if you check it out. It's on YouTube again, quick audiobook, like 40 minutes. Very good. And I feel like you don't necessarily have to be a King fan to get something out of it or to enjoy it. So check it out. And if you want to let us know what you think or have any other questions regarding anything, you can send us an email at wax@waxingtheporpoise.com or hit us up on our socials, Instagram, Waxing the Porpoise, or Twitter at Waxing the Porp. Again, we're going to keep with the schedule that we had planned for Confessions of a Traveling Card Counter Part 2 will be dropping next Thursday, June 30th. And then we also have planned the following week, we're going to be covering, dipping our toe back into the unexplained waters where we talk about the mysterious death of Colin Finnerty on Thursday, July 7th. If you want to read up on him, take a look. He's one of the infamous missing 411 cases by David Polides. Super interesting. So I'm looking forward to that one. So yeah, check that stuff out. You got any final thoughts?
We are recording, right?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay.
We're good this time.
You have any moves? I'd like to see you incorporate them.
Like to see you incorporate them. All right. Well, so you're good?
I'm good. Yeah.
We're good. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Apologies for the technical difficulties. This will be coming out today, Friday, a little bit late. But in the meantime, everybody take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
He beats me. Straight up. Pay him. Pay that man his money.